So this episode, I'm just going to go straight into the British business fact.
Oh, God,
so,
right, go on.
James Dyson wasn't a businessman.
Right.
He was an art student who hated vacuum cleaners.
No way.
There we go.
Really?
Yeah. So this episode's all about what we learned outside of the boardroom. It's about bringing personal skills in to business and applying them, which maybe naturally aren't things that you would associate with being important business skills.
Yeah.
So
what have you learned outside of the boardroom that you brought into Holmes Country Clothing?
I mean, loads of different things, really. I think one of the interesting things that's happened later in life is having children.
Right, yeah, okay, yeah.
Having children and then going, that's why that staff member behaved like this.
Yeah, all right, yeah. That makes sense. That does make sense.
So that's our opening hook. There we are, people are in. If you're listening for the first time and you like the sound of this podcast or episode, make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Spotify. It really helps, and it'll help you keep in touch with me and Tom. So, please do that. Comment, like the videos. It helps massively with the algorithm and how things perform. So I mentioned James Dyson. So his frustration and creative background led to a complete reinvention of household tech. So basically, he didn't like them because he was an art student that liked to concentrate and be in the zone, and then his mum or dad was probably hoovering around with a really loud vacuum cleaner. So that's the little fact. But basically, proof that breakthroughs often come from people outside of the industry bubble.
Yeah.
That's so true, isn't it?
It is very true.
Like people that come from outside of the day-to-day and they bring a different perspective in, and they then come into an industry that's kind of a bit stale, a bit boring, disrupt, bring outside influence in, outside mindset, and boom.
Yeah.
I've done that in country clothing. To be honest with you, like, I don't mean to blow my own trumpet, but like I came into an industry that did feel stale and old. A lot of older business owners in there that are used to, and to be fair, running really stable, successful businesses. But I had a background, and it was actually business experience, but a background in McDonald's. I did their graduate program where everything's all about data, numbers, systems, like efficiency. And I just took that basic knowledge and applied it into a little small family business, and boom.
Brilliant.
So I think, to a certain extent, it's what we learned outside the boardroom, but it's just about really taking ideas and implementing them into businesses or systems that are a bit more antiquated. I think that's a big topic to cover off for today. I mean, James Dyson, he is, and he's actually applying that mindset to agriculture now. I don't know if you know much about it.
All I know is that he owns a massive amount of farmland.
Yeah. I mean, he probably did it to avoid inheritance tax, and that might have backfired slightly. But he's been a big investor in agricultural technology.
Right. Okay.
So he's innovated a lot of he's not innovated himself personally. But he's spent the cash to create innovation in farming techniques, really modern, cutting edge bits and pieces. I don't know much more than that in detail because I remember reading that article about 2 years ago. But if you Google it and have a look, or ChatGPT it, I'm sure.
Yeah, ChatGPT will sort that one.
It'll answer that question for you. But yeah, I know he's big in like innovation. So he's moved from being an art student, solving the problem of the Hoover being too noisy and inefficient, to then going, I'm going to pay a lot of tax, so I'll buy some agricultural land.
Now how can I improve that?
And then because he's such a serial entrepreneur, he's gone, right, well, there's problems there. This is a bit of a mess.
Let me get these sorted.
Let me sort this out as well. Problem solver.
That's it.
Which is what we all are, I think. Like, if you've got that entrepreneurial mind, you like fixing issues, 100%.
You like the chaos and then find the resolution.
You like...
Get it back to order.
You like order and systems. Definitely. But you also have the ability to operate in chaos.
Thrive in it.
Yeah, exactly. So business blunder of the week. So the house crowd's governance failures. So what happened? A peer-to-peer property platform run by visionaries with no structure. So the mistake: big ideas but no compliance or systems. So the fallout, admin collapse, millions lost, investor outrage, lesson, creative thinking is vital, but it has to be grounded in operational sense. So I don't know if you know much about the house crowds, but they're basically it was like a property platform. I googled it after ChatGPT kind of chucked this out. Sometimes it comes up with some really good, interesting business blunders and also British business facts.
Yeah.
I don't know about them.
No. So you want to research more.
Yeah. So the cool thing is have a Google about the house crowds, that business. But yeah, it kind of boom and bust basically. They got loads of investors on board, and it went haywire.
Went nowhere.
But maybe a little bit like that, really creative ideas. Bringing ideas in outside of business, and how potentially sometimes things you might have a great idea that you think will then apply in business, but it doesn't always pan out.
Yeah, or in that industry it wouldn't work.
Yeah, so it's a hybrid between the kind of concept of bringing things from outside of business or industry, bringing them in, but then also respecting the industry that you're entering.
Yeah.
Something really important. So, discussion segments for today. Unlikely skills that paid off. What jobs, hobbies, or personal experiences shaped how you lead today? So how do you use your cricket skills in business, mate?
Well, I suppose it's patience, because I'm a batsman, so I'm an opening batsman.
Oh, you're right. Okay, yeah, cool, yeah. Well, that's why you've got that big.
Yeah, I've got one on the inner thigh where I
don't be showing your inner thigh to the camera.
It might get a few more views if you can zoom in on that, Morgan. That might help. There you go. Yeah,
really
I got one.
Thigh
Yeah, I think you need a bit more work them thighs, but yeah, I got one from our Australian overseas pro to the inner thigh last night because I wasn't concentrating.
So where do you play cricket then?
Birchvale Cricket Club.
Yeah,
in Derbyshire. Yeah.
And I think we'll leave the cricket conversation there because I'd imagine it's quite a niche sport.
It's a niche. Well, you know what? Apparently, it's growing massively.
Is it? It's going for a bit of growth.
Yeah, because it was in decline for years upon years. Like number of village cricket clubs, like what would be like grassroots, folding, can't get teams out.
Yeah.
Now there's a big resurgence in it, so hopefully.
It's a British sport, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah.
I tell you what, like obviously we're British business, very patriotic, but we should be proud to be British because we created so many different things. I mean, we create a lot of problems in the globe as well, but cricket, rugby, football, like all like the top, like the big mainstream sports, and obviously cricket's huge in obviously ex-colonies, but India,
massive.
Australia. So there's an ex-Australian pro at your club.
Yeah. He's only a young lad, so it's
he's an overseas, so he's not ex. He's
not.
Yeah. That's interesting.
He's a good lad, good player.
Yeah, so you're a batsman, so that's a lot about like mindset.
Yeah.
Ducking and
weaving, playing every ball as it comes.
Yeah.
Because and not be preemptive in your decision making on a ball, because some people go into the mindset of, right, I'm going to hit this ball for six regardless of how it's delivered. You can't do that. Absolutely not. So it's
a good analogy, that actually, kind of taking each ball as it comes.
Yeah. That's what life is like, isn't it?
Well, it's what business is like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jesus Christ. You don't know what's coming into that email inbox.
No.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true, isn't it?
We've had some, like randomly, some random, like copyright infringement company.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bit of a tire kicking exercise.
Oh, God, right.
Basically, on one of the sites we used an image which was someone who was an ambassador for one of the brands that we're using. Okay. We didn't have the copyright permission to use the image.
Right. Okay.
Even though they're an ambassador of the brand.
Yeah.
But it's actually, interestingly, this company, they don't actually have the permission of the copyright holder.
No.
They're contacting us prior to asking the copyright holder that they can contact us, and they're getting us. They want us to pay them money. So then they go
Sounds
back.
Like a racket.
It's honestly absolute scam. Some company in London. I'm just like, what is this? And they're trying to get £1,000 out of
That sounds like somebody's got a piece of tech together to be able to scan the internet and send out mass, basically intimidation emails.
That is exactly what it is, Morgan. Is it your business?
Yeah, what are you doing there, Morgan? What are you doing behind that screen right now?
That is literally exactly what it is. And if you go on Trustpilot, it's like there's loads of business owners saying this is a scam.
Yeah.
Most of the time, this company don't have the permission of the copyright holder to chase you. And then what they're doing is they're going after journalists.
Yeah, right.
So this app or this piece of software, it crawls the internet and goes after you. Anyway, I don't know how.
1 in 10 might pay though, and that's fine for them, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what they're banking on.
Yeah,
It's terrible behaviour, but yeah.
Absolute scumbags. But anyway, I don't know how my brain ended up on that. What were we talking about?
That's just the
my
way it works, though,
I'm
isn't
sorry, guys. If you're trying to listen in on this podcast, it's like, what is that? So we've gone from business to cricket, to extortion, and then we're going back to cricket.
Back to cricket, yeah.
How long have you been playing cricket for then?
You know what? I started when I was 13.
Yeah.
So quite a while, but then I did take I took a 6-year break, and I've just gone back to it now.
Yeah. How important do you think sport has been in your mindset towards business?
I think it's massive. I think sport, mindset, and business all go hand in hand in a way.
Yeah.
Because it teaches you so many different aspects of skills, I suppose, that you can use that are transferable in business as well. You know, I've played predominantly, although within cricket I'm a batsman, so it's generally me against the bowler at the time, but I'm still playing a team sport because the way I perform impacts the team's performance.
Yeah.
As it does in a business. Individual has an impact on the performance of revenue or anything within a company, but overall it's all those individuals or employees within the business that are obviously all there pushing for growth, aren't they? So yeah, sport, business.
I think if you've come from a bit of a background in your youth era and maybe into adulthood where you've played in team sports, it definitely equips you with a really strong skill set that then can be applied either as an employee within business or business in general. And the skills that you learn, like if you're in a cricket team, it's like stakeholder management.
It is.
And dealing with obviously opposing team and it's quite an interesting.
And strategic thinking, planning how we're gonna. What are our tactics going to be against this team? I know they've got a really good batsman, so we're gonna, and I know they don't like spin bowling, so we're gonna bring our spinner in. Use the spinner to go against that really skilled batsman. Yeah,
or it might be like even solo sport, like fighting unconventionally, like like this fighter's not used to fighting against someone who's southpaw. Well, I'm gonna fight southpaw in this fight just to mix it up or whatever. Like it's interesting those kind of correlations between sport and business.
Yeah.
So I think sport is a really obvious one.
Yeah.
Where you can bring in a lot of like. You can even look at sports science as well.
Yeah.
When you think about high performance athletes, and we've touched on it in previous episodes about the concept of really looking at yourself and trying to personally develop yourself.
Yeah.
If you can take those principles of marginal gains and improvement in sport and then go, right, well, I'm going to apply that mindset to my business as well. I think high performance athletes, they're almost a little bit entrepreneurial.
Yeah. If you look at the characteristics of a high performing athlete, you're going to see focus, determination, the habits, the training, the belief, all those things that you need in business.
Yeah.
In order to succeed and achieve what you want to achieve. I think they sit side by side.
And it's almost as if actually a lot of business people, they actually look towards high performance athletes for inspiration.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though those individuals are not accomplished in the field that the person may be in.
Yeah.
But it's about mindset and approach to problems.
Yeah.
That's something that people look for inspiration from those fields.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite an interesting little segment there, like the science of sport and business.
And business, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a correlation between successful entrepreneurs and that kind of sporting mindset. I think you've said it I listened back to a previous episode, you treat business as a sport almost.
It's like a hobby and a sport to me. Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I couldn't agree more with that. What are your hobbies and interests, business?
I know, yeah.
Well, actually, some of our listeners think, because you can't listen to a podcast while you're working, really.
No.
Unless you're doing a task like maybe you're a mechanic or something where you're kind of doing something with your hands in autopilot, and then your brain can do it. But we can't listen to podcasts while we work. So we end up inherently you're in the gym.
Yes.
Or walking or running, listening to a podcast.
Yeah.
Developing yourself, growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's efficient, that, innit? Training the body and training the mind at the same time. And time management. That's what anytime I'm doing anything. If I'm walking, getting some steps in, podcast. If I'm training, earphones in, podcast. Just make the most of the time you've got.
Yeah, so important. So yeah, I would say like a key thing is bringing in sporting mentality into business. I think that's a big thing. So one of the things ChatGPT has kind of commented on is the role of soft skills in leadership.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So how important, this is like why I mentioned about being a parent.
Yeah.
So how important is empathy, adaptability, and emotional intelligence?
Yeah.
I think understanding people and respecting that people operate at different like levels and frameworks.
Yes.
And I don't mean it to belittle like people I've worked with in the past, but actually seeing how emotionally vulnerable children are, and then actually going, and maybe I look at myself more than anything else, and then realizing how emotionally vulnerable I am. Being kind to people. Yeah, and being helpful. And you see it in children more because they react quicker. Yeah. They're a bit more emotionally unstable because they're less developed. So you can see those little traits in people. Yeah. And it's about applying it and going, well, I want to be reasonable to this person. I don't want to be. Yeah. So like taking that and then pivoting it into
the workplace, into business. And when you're dealing with individuals in the workplace. Yeah, I can see that. That is a very good analogy. Very good.
Maybe a little bit harsh to compare your team to children, though. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly, but
maybe some of them. There we are. I think so. How important is empathy, adaptability, and emotional intelligence? I think putting yourself in other people's shoes is very important, and leaning on that kind of. Yeah, I suppose sport's a big thing, like we said, but empathy is very important, I would say.
And you say putting yourself in other people's shoes, which I think can be difficult for business owners to do because of the different levels of things you're dealing with at the time, to see it from another person's point of view as well. But that's a skill that, as we're talking about now, that you need to bring to the workplace and bring into your armory to make you a better business leader. Yeah.
Have you ever had anyone that's come into your team and like disrupted the team positively because they've come from a different skill set almost? So like, you might employ someone that comes from more of an academia background, perhaps, that they then come and apply logic in a different way to your business. I'm just trying to think about it there, because ChatGPT mentions like the concept of like people coming in from different industry and skill sets and bringing them into like e-com or whatever it might be that you're operating within. I mean, I can think my old warehouse manager, Jenny, she ended up being a great copywriter.
No, is that Jenny?
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you not know Jenny was my warehouse
manager? No. I thought she worked within like the office or something.
Well, she did eventually, yeah. I like helped push her towards that in the end, but she started off as a warehouse operative.
No way.
Yeah. And she writes now all the content for you guys.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, doing a great job, Jenny. Thank you very much.
I think she listens to the podcast, so shout out to, I think it's Jennifer Johnson Copywriting is her little business that she's set up now. She's gone independent. Yeah. She's doing really well.
Yeah, good on her. Really nice person. Falls back to reputation in the previous episode. That she's got a great reputation.
Yeah,
for what
she has.
Does. Yeah, that's why we're singing her praises.
Yeah, she's a good, honest person.
Yeah,
which I think these days can be a bit rare, to be honest.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But yeah, hopping back to it, that kind of like bringing in people from outside of industry. So like the theme of the podcast is like you've got someone that's over here with a skill set that's a skill set out of business, but sometimes it can be, well, if you need to grow and develop your mindset or your team, actually hiring someone outside of e-com from a different industry for us might be worthwhile, maybe. And also even like within e-commerce for us, you've got direct consumer retail and you've got direct consumer brands, which is two different marketing styles. But if you can pull someone over from direct consumer brand marketing and pivot them into retail marketing, it can have a really positive impact.
Yeah, I can see that, get behind that. Yeah, which is true. I don't think we've had anyone come in from outside of industry into our business, so I've got no personal experience in it. The only thing I can think of is when I'm talking to people in different industries, whether it's like a holiday let service accommodation industry, whether it's someone that's making mixing paint and pigment, or someone that's selling hearing aids, or someone, well, we're similar e-commerce, selling clothes online, but different industries, or, you know, electrical contractor. There's all sorts of different things we can pull from each other, even though different businesses, different, you know, different ways of working.
Yeah, I think speaking to, well, it's kind of your network is your net worth in a way. And like, it's kind of pivoting slightly away from the topic, but that concept of like speaking to other business owners and other entrepreneurs and stealing their ideas and implementing them, that's a massive thing. But yeah, I mean, if you look at like the technology sector and like how ideas, like they start off, sometimes they start off as like almost like an idea within the public sector, and then they pivot into private and private into public. There's that kind of like exchanging of concepts as well.
Yeah.
But I think education and academia have a massive influence on business and entrepreneurship without realising it.
Yeah.
Because they actually, in a way, they push entrepreneurs out of those systems.
Yeah, they do.
But entrepreneurs, because they're very like, kind of like creative, and they're always thinking.
Yeah, the doers.
Yeah, the doers. They'll almost take little snippets. We're almost like chameleons in a way.
Yeah.
Like we adapt to our surroundings, but you're kind of pulling and stealing those ideas from whatever industry you might have come from.
Yeah.
No, it's quite an interesting one. So this is a good one. How do you stop your creativity from creating chaos? So balancing intuition with structure. I mean, what do you make of that? Like, I think because like James Dyson being an artist, that's a very, like, he's been an art student originally, and then he's then taken that mindset of like calm, and he's then become this serial entrepreneur. That's quite a inspiring
journey,
like
for
pivot,
someone,
actually.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I see Mark, my uncle, one of the directors in the business. He started like really getting back into art now.
Oh,
he's
right.
like semi-retired.
Yeah.
So he started off in art and then went into marketing.
Yeah. Okay.
And then went into his own business. That kind of like creativity, when it's harnessed really well in business, it can be dovetailed in
channeled
quite
in
nicely.
the right way. Yeah.
No, definitely. What fragments help you avoid being too wing it? So, sorry, what frameworks help you avoid being too wing it? Like, do you like the concept of like winging it and just like going with the flow and like making up as you go along? That's quite an interesting one. I mean, I think as entrepreneurs, we kind of pivot between winging it and then systemizing and following a process. Do you look outside of our industry at all and go, how can I steal ideas and bring them in? Is that something that you...
Yeah, no, all the time. Look at like different businesses, different industries. What are they doing? You know, because ultimately business is very much a system that works regardless of industry, isn't it? It's all about systems, processes, which you touched on the McDonald's systems and process. You can apply that probably with any business, managing the right people, having the right systems and processes in place. All you're doing is having a service or a product that customers desire and want. It's about putting it through that system.
Yeah.
So yeah, McDonald's is a prime framework or blueprint for something like that.
Do you think, because one of the other things I was thinking about, like reading the notes, was like HMRC and the kind of like high tax society.
Yeah.
It kind of almost prevents these outside influences or people that sit outside of entrepreneurship and business that aren't already in it and established. It makes it very difficult for people to end up in entrepreneurship. It's almost like, so if you're heavily taxing small business, that potential person with an idea or a skill set that would have maybe taken that leap of faith, it becomes more risky for them to do it.
Yeah. Where's the incentive for them to maybe leave a steady, solid job earning good money to put their idea or, create their own business when It is extremely
that kind of like barrier to entry and transferring of skills and knowledge from outside of business into business. It's quite concerning actually, because if you think about it, someone who is in kind of like a sector, a non-business sector, the public sector, or they've got personal hobbies and interests and they want to change that idea and bring it into a business or entrepreneurship, but they're looking at the numbers or they're like considering it, it's just too much hassle.
Yeah.
It's definitely damaging.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Which will, it's their choice in it if they want to stay employed, stay in a good job or whatever they're doing, but then they might have a passion project or an idea with no real incentive or tax break or whatnot to get into business and try and implement it.
Yeah, it was interesting actually. Just we'll pivot into AI just to finish the episode off. Maybe we'll cover it off at the start of the next episode a little bit as well, because it's quite an interesting one. But I had a conversation with ChatGPT about how ChatGPT, if it were in charge of like the tax rules and systems in the UK, what would it do to stimulate the economy and growth and get more people into entrepreneurship? And it spoke immediately. And as I asked it as well, how up to date are you on current affairs? And it's like, basically when ChatGPT first came out, it was like a year or two behind, whereas now it's pretty much live. It knows who Rachel is and knows Starmer and knows the policies and politics of it all. I didn't mention them. I just said, like, what would you do?
Yeah.
And it was talking about how it would focus in on reducing taxes to lower the bar to entry into entrepreneurship, to get more younger people and more new businesses set up and going.
Yeah.
To reduce their barrier to entry, basically.
Yeah.
Which, when you think about bringing different mindsets and skills, like James Dyson or whoever it might be, that innovator with a different perspective on a particular industry, to get them in, they need a low barrier to entry so they can get started.
Yeah. Otherwise, they just won't.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about your early days and like the fact that you had to pay yourself less than your staff and you were on minimum wage and all the rest of it, I think it would be harder now to do that.
Yeah, it would be.
If you think about the corporation tax difference, I mean, what was corporation tax when you first started? 19%?
19, 20. You know what? It might have even been 21, and I think it whittled its way down to like 19.
Yeah.
And then obviously we got hit with this increase to 25, which is glorious, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's just less money for you to reinvest back into the business.
Well, yeah, because basically it's cash flow out the business, isn't it? An additional 6%. Well, it's costing us in essence then, like in terms of the monetary amount, it's a 30% increase in tax that on the business. 30% of your payment you would have made on top, cash flow out the business. Can't reinvest it within the business to help it grow.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, I mean, there's a big thing that I've been like thinking about doing recently, and like looking at the numbers. It's a big decision, but it's like, well, we can't do it because we've paid all this out on tax.
Yeah.
And it's like damaged the cash flow of the business down massively. And it's like, well, if I hadn't have paid all that money out on tax, maybe I would have taken that risk.
Yeah.
Because I'd have a bit more of a security net within the business.
Yeah, you would have.
So it's that stifled growth and opportunity. And that, if I'd done that, taken that risk and gone for it, well, I would have been spending money with certain people and reinvesting back in the economy, creating profits for other businesses, which then would have gone in tax. So I think tax and this kind of entrepreneurship, they are so interlinked.
Oh, good God. Yeah. Did it come up with anything else, ChatGPT, on what it would say to do things differently?
Yeah, I mean, it was very interesting because it was focused more on reducing tax on profits.
Okay.
And focusing more on turnover tax.
Yeah.
So keeping turnover tax where it is at the moment, like 20%, but keep VAT steady.
Yeah.
But reduce corp tax, increasing the personal income tax thresholds as well.
Yeah.
Which is another interesting one.
So people
giving people more money to spend.
Yeah.
Exactly. To stimulate the economy more. But anyway, I think we're going to leave that episode there. Nice, short and snappy on what we've learned outside of the boardroom and brought into business. I think there's a lot more we could cover off, but I think the main thing I would focus in on is like the concept of like personal development, skill sets outside of business to do with like sport and sports science and applying them to your own individual, trying to grow and improve yourself and become better at what you do.
Yeah.
And looking outside at individuals outside of business where you can take some inspiration from. Definitely. For me anyway, that's what I spend a lot of time thinking about.
Yeah.
That self-improvement.
It's a big piece, isn't it? Working on yourself.
100%. So next week's episode, we are doing... So it's episode 19 next week.
Right, yeah.
There we are. We're getting close to that
Clocking up
number
now,
20, which is nice.
Yeah.
So this is all about... so the next week's episode is all about exiting your business and evolving. Should you sell your business? And the emotional journey of letting go.
Yeah, big one.
That's quite a heavy hitter, that one.
Yeah.
I think that'll be really good. So yeah, we'll leave it there and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.